welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better our world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Carrie Graff, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today will be led by Linda Starkweather. Thank you to everyone on this morning's worship team, including music by Bill Mells, and Children's Church for Children 3 and Over by Carrie and Matt Ross McGuire. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's log, which is in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 1,000th, we are glad that you came. The service is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel, and we plan on continuing this hybrid worship services through the church year. So you can join us here in person or on Zoom or later on YouTube. And to help us connect better with our friends watching at home, please turn around and give a wave to the camera in the back. Welcome, everybody. And we've got a full house in the house today, which is really exciting. It's nice to see so many people here today. At the end of the service, we're going to invite our friends on Zoom at home to turn on their cameras and return the wave. So there are a bunch of announcements today. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, please fill out the card on your chair. We invite you to bring them forward and place them in the basket after Bill rings the chimes and begins to play. And you can also come forward and drop a petal into the water at that time if you have a joy or a sorrow that you prefer not to share. If you just want to drop one in when you put your joy or sorrow in, it's fine. They weren't out on the seats? Okay.
They didn't make it to the seats.
Danielle's got this, though. You will have your cards for your joys and sorrows, and she even has pencils, so we're good. Okay. We will plan to post a printed copy of the announcements on the wall over the welcome table. Just in case you missed part of something that sounded interesting, you just want to get more details on it, you didn't have a chance to write it down. So by the welcome table, you can just look back there for the week's announcements so you see it in print. I don't know about you, but I'm much better if I see it than if I hear it. So please join us today after the service for Second Sunday potluck. You may remember the second Sunday of every month. We have a potluck afterwards, and please stay even if you did not bring any food. Because there's always plenty. There's always enough to share. The University of Rochester is going to be holding their annual Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Conference on Tuesday, October 15th at the Riverside Convention Center. Isabel Wilkerson, author of Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents, will be the keynote speaker. Up to 1,000 members of the greater Rochester community are invited to register at no cost for this full-day event with a boxed lunch provided. Visit the link posted in the chat, or it's going to be on the announcements page. I will not read off what that link is. It's really horrible. It's just long. So you can take a picture of it in the back, and then you'll have it. So that'll be by the welcome table. And registration is still open. We're making a change to the way that we compost. Emptying our compost container was a task postponed or forgotten a few too many times. If you are here while food is being shared and would like to take on the responsibility of setting out a bowl for scraps and then emptying it before you leave the building, please do so. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community? Laura.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so follow up from the climate justice revival that we had. What's next? So I just got an email yesterday, and Bill and I were talking about this yesterday. What's our action? The organizers are encouraging us right now to take a rest. We did a lot of work, celebrate what we've done, reflect on what we've learned, synthesize, and next organize. So please take a few minutes when you have a chance to look at all the work that we have done as represented on our posters on the walls, and add, if you'd like to. There's going to be a feedback form in the newsletter coming up. I just sent that today, so Scarlett's going to probably get to that later this week. And I'd like to suggest that we start on our synthesis work. So at the next Social Environmental Justice Sunday, our Social Sunday, which is October 27th, please come if you participated and come if you didn't. Even if you missed, you can still participate. And let's work on taking the thoughts that are posted up there and synthesizing them so that we can get some action statements. Thank you.
Our closing hymn today is number 76. You might have noticed that when you got to your chair today because your book was open to it. The last couple of times we've used this hymn, we changed the last line, and we made that last line sing as, "Gifts we've received, we're grateful." And so I thought, well, instead of just announcing it and making people remember, I'll just put it in the hymnal. So that's those words are in your hymnal for the last line of our last hymn, and we'll use those words today for that one.
Any other announcements? Okay. As we prepare to fully be together, I remind you to silence anything that beeps or buzzes that is in your pocket or pocketbook. We now enter a space of worship. Now is the time to bring up any joys or sorrows that you have, and you can put them in the baskets. Just avoid the little candle down there as you put them in there. Don't set anything on fire. And also to drop a pebble in if you'd like.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Do we have a cellist letter volunteer today? I forgot to ask. Anyone like to? All right, you can do it together. All right, just be careful, guys. Oh, boy. I invite you to join with me in our cellist lighting words as the flame is lit. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, like this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, celebration, like we shared together.
Good morning. I'm really happy to be back here today with you all. Thanks for coming out on a tough, blustery day. Just a taste of what's to come, I think. Opening words this morning is going to kind of also serve as our children's story. When talking of abundance, I'm reminded of a report that linguist Daniel Everett wrote as he was learning from a hunter-gatherer community in the Brazilian rainforest. A hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. The researcher asked how he would store the excess. Smoking and drying technologies were well known. Storing was possible. The hunter was puzzled by the question. Store the meat? Why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, why didn't he store the meat for himself, which is what the economic system of our culture would predict. Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother, replied the hunter.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 16. 'Tis a gift to be simple. Please rise as you're willing and able and join us to sing.
now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week we like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. And this week that group is hospitality. We thank everyone who brought food for potluck today and everyone who also brings food for our, just kind of like a little noshing after church each week for the other weeks. And if you would like to get on some kind of a regular schedule for bringing stuff and kind of help volunteer for that, so we know there's actually food here all the time, you can find out more by contacting Karen or Brandon. 1/4 of our plate collection for the harvest season goes to the Greater Rochester Habitat for Humanity, who builds strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket, or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering so we can send it to the right place, and we now gratefully accept the offering. So we have one joy that made it into our basket this morning. It is from Matt, who is grateful for their little pumpkin patch. So cute. All right. And I just have one to share. It's both a sorrow and a joy. It's great to be back here. I've been gone for the last about 6 weeks because my mom had a really big stroke. And spent most of September in Pennsylvania with her, and I'll be going back, so I won't be here for the next 2 weeks again. But she's home, but is completely paralyzed in her right leg still, and is 24/7 assistance. So things are a little rough there. So she is improving, but we don't know that she's going to be at all independent again. So a little rough. So I'm going to just drop a stone into the column of water for any joys or sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts. And if we could all say, we are with you for the pumpkin patch and for my mom. Thanks. We are with you. And now it is time for the children to go downstairs. So any children who would like to go down for Children's Church, please go downstairs with Kaya and Carrie and Matt.
For our centering meditation today, if you're comfortable closing your eyes or at least gazing downward with a soft gaze, take a big breath in, let it out slowly. And for the next few minutes, in silence perhaps, think of several things this morning that you are grateful for. This morning's message was originally titled Engineering Paradise. And my good friend Petra Page Mann suggested I might use a less industrialized term. So it is now called Cultivating Paradise. And you'll see why. We've all heard the famous words from Albert Einstein, "The world's problems will not be solved by the same people who created them." Or, "We will not evolve past our current state of crisis by using the same thinking that created the situation." Today, I'd like to share some thoughts, not by Einstein, but by a man called Eisenstein, who has been working to change our ways of thinking about economics and the myth of scarcity. Charles Eisenstein discusses the idea of a gift economy, or a gift culture, which is a mode of exchange where valuables are not traded or sold, but rather given, without an explicit agreement for immediate or future rewards. Sounds kind of un-American, doesn't it? Well, for a nation built on exploitation, manifest destiny, doctrine of discovery, and the unbridled accumulation of wealth, I guess it is. Eisenstein's primary goal is the reestablishment of some form of gift economy as a means of strengthening relationships, in contrast to money economics, which commodify our relationships and render people interchangeable. Just another cog in the wheel of our consumer-driven culture. He asserts that money is created by the conversion of free human interactions into paid services. Eisenstein himself attempts to practice the gift economy in his own life. His events are held voluntarily, organized by others who invite him to speak in accordance with his ideal of generosity and living in the gift. He generally charges people expenses, but no fee, leaving it up to them to give him something if they want to. In his book, Sacred Economics, Eisenstein explores economic proposals, including a personal emphasis on right livelihood over financial motivation. The idea of right livelihood is an ancient one. It embodies the principles that each person should follow an honest occupation which fully respects other people, animals, and the natural world. It means being responsible for the consequences of our actions and taking only our fair share of the earth's resources. In writings, he has also advocated for universal basic income. He explains and rejects what he describes as the myth of scarcity, which fosters greed and anxiety. Remember the toilet paper crisis at the beginning of the pandemic? Now, was there actually a shortage or just a fear of a possible, maybe, shortage? And we know that here in the U.S., 40% of our food ends up in the trash. And about most of what we buy at Walmart ends up in a landfill within 5 years. We are the most wasteful nation in the world, having only 5% of the world's population, but using 30% of the world's resources. According to the Brookings Institute, American households held over $98 trillion of wealth in 2018. If that amount were divided equally across the U.S. population, it would result in over $343,000 for each person. For a family of three, that's over $1 million in assets. Worldwide, if all the wealth were to be distributed equally, each human being on the planet would be worth $34,000. In our falsely inflated economy, that may not sound like all that much to some, but it would be a literal fortune to most of the world's citizens. There is no one on this planet that can justify the worth of Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame and fortune, who makes the annual salary of his lowest paid employee every 11 seconds. And he, along with most other billionaires, has cashed in during our pandemic misfortune to the tune of $90 billion additional dollars, which is almost 80% increase in his wealth in less than a year. Now, we know Jeff is not a lazy guy, but has he worked hard enough to earn that fortune? Or has he benefited from the back-breaking, underpaid, minimum wage earning employees that are seen as disposable if they should ask for more? Are his employees lazy because they cannot pay their bills on what lawmakers have decided is an acceptable but not livable minimum wage? There are many reasons folks behave in ways that might at first glance seem like laziness. But when we call someone lazy, we condemn that human being, explains Mel Levine in his book, The Myth of Laziness. What appears to be lazy can actually be fear of failure, fear of success, desire for nurture, fear of expectations, passive-aggressive communication, depression, learned helplessness, lack of equal education, illness, or simply the need for downtime. Many of us erroneously assume that we should always be going full steam and chastise ourselves for being lazy when our body and mind shut down in protest. Our culture puts a premium on productivity and hard work. The reality is that everyone needs time to relax, regenerate for both our physical and emotional health. Our collective tendency toward compulsive overwork is a product of something Dr. Devon Price calls the laziness lie. From their new book, Laziness Does Not Exist. The laziness lie is a belief system rooted in the Protestant work ethic, imperialism, and the legacy of chattel slavery, and it was designed to keep people forever toiling without complaint. The laziness lie has three major tests. Your productivity is your worth, you can't trust your own feelings and needs, and there is always more that you could be doing. Dr. Price concludes that doing too much has destroyed our health, our economy, our environment, and our relationships, as well as our spirits. And then Dr. Pierce poses this challenge. Why not try doing less? At the very least, it will give us some much-needed space to grieve all that's been taken from us while we've been toiling so hard for the billionaires to reap the financial reward. But let's get back to the proposal of a universal basic income. Some welfare systems can be regarded as steps on the way to a basic income, but they have conditions attached that are not basic incomes. Universal basic income, also called basic living stipend or guaranteed annual income, is a theoretical governmental program for a periodic payment delivered to all citizens of a given population without a means test or work requirement. You might remember back in 2020, Andrew Yang traveled the country as a presidential candidate trying to convince voters that a crisis was coming. The economy was going to evolve, he warned. Jobs would be automated away in droves. Anyone been to Walmart lately? Do it yourself, right? Americans were going to find themselves at home without a paycheck. And then, with the pandemic, we were all sent home at once. Mr. Yang spent months insisting the federal government provide American adults with universal basic income of $1,000 a month. But the global pandemic had arrived, and the fallout from the outbreak, which we are still experiencing, had plunged the country into a grim and uncertain reality. So only then, with millions of not so lazy, hardworking Americans facing the prospect of no work and wondering how they would pay the bills, had proposals similar to Mr. Yang's gained wide bipartisan approval. In the sort of political turnabout that may only be possible when society faces dire need, giving free money to Americans suddenly appeared not only rational but critically necessary to many Democrats and key Republicans. In countries where citizens are actually valued, such as Finland, Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, New Zealand, and Canada, The government has made sure that their citizens have a financial safety net. Oh, and by the way, they are all democratic socialist nations. We live in amazing times. We understand more about the world than ever. We have powerful computers in our pocket and artificial intelligence tools that analyze data for us. All of this at the consumer's fingertips. The internet is connecting all the top minds of the planet. Automation makes our lives easier every day. Violent crime rates are going down, and there are fewer wars than ever in history. We live in a world of information and connectivity, and yet we are so paralyzed with fear that we can't see the solutions to the world's biggest problems are in our hands, one of which is economic inequality. A human being in survival mode only cares about the immediate future, the job they are about to lose, the stability of the economy, and natural disasters. Larger problems, even those that could cause our species extinction, doesn't matter to the person afraid of not being able to pay the bills. And so we focus on immediate solutions to immediate threats. We therefore neglect to deal with the risks of our whole species being wiped out after decades of ecological neglect and out-of-control population growth, end-stage capitalism, and global warming. The African ethic of Ubuntu, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, is a philosophy of respect, caring, helpfulness, community, trust, sharing, and generosity. The word Ubuntu is found in several Southern African languages, and it literally means humanness. To have Ubuntu is to be a person who is living a genuinely human way of life, whereas to lack Ubuntu is to be missing human excellence. People indigenous to Africa commonly believe that one's basic aim in life should be to exhibit Ubuntu, which is done by prizing communal relationships with other people. The aphorism, "A rising tide lifts all boats," has been used in recent years to highlight economic inequality. And most progressive economists and philosophers opine that in the absence of appropriate policies, the rising tide will lift some boats, but others will run aground. And British Labour MP Ed Miliband said, "They used to say a rising tide lifted all boats. Now the rising tide just seems to lift the yachts." But becoming economic theory aside, gratitude and reciprocity are the currency of a gift economy. And they have the remarkable property of multiplying with every exchange. Their energy concentrating as they pass from hand to hand, a truly renewable resource. Robin Wall Kimmerer, I know many of you know her work. She's a professor of environmental and forest biology at the State University of New York, College of Environmental Science and Forestry. She's an indigenous woman and a member of the Potawatomi Nation. She is best known for her book, say it with me, Braiding Sweetgrass, where her poetic gift is using nature as metaphor to highlight what it means to be human. I'd like to include today a story about gifts from Professor Kimmerer in her own words. As I harvest service berries alongside the birds, I consider the ethic of reciprocity that lies at the heart of the gift economy. In Potawatomi, it is called bozikmin, which is a superlative, the best of the best of the berries. She says, "I agree with my ancestors on the rightness of that name. For me, the most important part of the word bozikmin is min, the root word for berry. It appears in our Potawatomi words for blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, even apple, maize, and wild rice. The revelation in that word is a treasure for me because it also is the root word for gift. In naming the plants who shower us with goodness, we recognize that these are gifts from our plant relatives, manifestations of their generosity, care, and creativity. When we speak of these, not as things or products or commodities, but as gifts, the whole relationship changes. I can't help but gaze at them cupped like jewels in my hand and breathe out my gratitude. In the presence of such gifts, gratitude is the intuitive first response. The gratitude flows toward our plant elders and radiates to the rain, to the sunshine, to the improbability of bushes spangled with morsels of sweetness in a world that can be bitter. Gratitude is so much more than a polite thank you. It is the thread that connects us in deep relationship, simultaneously physical and spiritual, as our bodies are fed and our spirits are nourished by the sense of belonging, which is the most vital of foods. Gratitude creates a sense of abundance, the knowing that you have what you need. In that climate of sufficiency, our hunger for more abates, and we take only what we need in respect for the generosity of the giver. If our first response is gratitude, then our second is reciprocity, to give a gift in return. What could I give these plants in return for their generosity? It could be a direct response like weeding or watering or a song of thanks that sends appreciation out on the wind. Or indirect, like donating to my local land trust so that the more habitat for the gift givers will be saved. Or making art that invites others into the web of reciprocity. To accept the gift from the bush and then spread that gift with a dish of berries to my neighbor, who makes a pie to share with his friend, who feels so wealthy in food and friendship that he volunteers at the food pantry. You see how it goes. To name the world as a gift is to feel one's membership in the web of reciprocity. It makes us happy, and it makes us accountable. Conceiving of something as a gift changes our relationship to it in a profound way, even though the physical makeup of the thing has not changed. Example, a woolly knit hat that you purchased at the store will keep you warm regardless of its origin. But if it was hand knit by your favorite auntie, then you are in relationship with that hat in a very different way. You are responsible for it, and your gratitude has motive force in the world. You're likely to take much better care of that gift hat than the commodity hat because it is knit of relationships. This is the power of gift thinking. I imagine if we acknowledged that everything we consume is the gift of Mother Earth, we would take much better care of what we are given. Mistreating a gift has emotional and ethical gravity as well as ecological resonance. How we think ripples out to how we behave. If we view these berries or that coal or forest as an object, as property, it can be exploited as a commodity in a market economy. And we know the consequences of that. Why then have we permitted the dominance of economic systems that commodify everything, that create scarcity instead of abundance, that promote accumulation rather than sharing? We've surrendered our values to an economic system that actively harms what we love. I'm wondering how we fix that. Just how do we cultivate paradise? In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. In fact, status is determined not by how much one accumulates, but by how much one gives away. The currency in a gift economy is relationship, which is expressed as gratitude, as interdependence, and the ongoing cycles of reciprocity. A gift economy nurtures the community bonds which enhance mutual well-being. The economic unit is we rather than I, as all flourishing is mutual. Many of you know our local UU celebrity, Petra Page Mann, and her partner Matthew Goldfarb, who began an amazing experiment 12 years ago in Naples, New York, by starting Fruition Seeds. They are developing, growing, distributing high-quality, certified organic seed. Their project has been incredibly successful, and as of this past August, they have stopped selling seeds and started giving seeds away. To continue their work, Fruition will now share their bounty with others in an energy exchange that calls on the community to contribute in whichever way they are called to do. Helping with finances, financial gifts, or helping with planting, harvesting, packaging seeds, and then sharing in the incredible bounty that nature provides. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, that's the hows and whys of how this experiment are explained in detail if you will visit their website. And as you know Petra, she explains everything in great detail in several ways so that we all can understand it. She's awesome. And after reviewing this sermon for me, Petra suggested that I might like to end with a challenge for all of us, something to think about. So, what are the seeds of this gift culture already in your life? When do you give without expecting to receive right away or ever? We all do, even in little ways. So to end, there's a quiz that I've been giving lately. The question is, there's only one question on the quiz, and I bet you all know the answer. What do we have that billionaires will never possess?
Enough.
First prize to the woman in the front row. The answer is enough. May it be so.
We lift our hearts in thanks today for all the gifts of life, the gifts that shine like stars above to chart the world by night.
I just love how Bill Mells shares his gifts every day. I'm going to leave you with these words by Robin Wall Kimmerer. All powers have two sides, the power to create and the power to destroy. We must recognize them both, but invest our gifts on the side of creation. Namaste.
Our closing hymn today is number 76. In the big hymnal, please rise as you're willing and able and join us to sing.
For flowers that bloom all about our
If you are with us today on Zoom and would like to wave goodbye at the end of the service, you can turn your camera on now. And please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.